That you'll enjoy this song as much as it's meant to me in my life. And if I can get it to come up here on the screen, we'll do it. It basically talks about, for me, my life. Jesus has made it to where I can't keep from singing about him. I can't keep from talking about his name. And so that's what this song's about.
Good morning. Now, I think it's, is it Phil? Phil. Now, Larry, I think it's interesting that you find two guys that look like this. I mean, you know, follically challenged, but not whatever this is. So,
We only hire the best.
Yeah. He gets quantity.
yeah, there you go. Oh, goodness. I didn't know I was going to be filmed today. I don't like standing in one place. I'm a little hyper, but also have, okay, Glenn, I saw that. But also I have had an experience several years back. I used to work for a program, for a company that sold programs to banks. And we were installing this new program in this bank. They were in a big kickoff there. We were in Colorado City, Texas. You can't say Colorado because they'll correct you. It's Colorado City. And it happened to be in August. And the air conditioning went out in the bank that day. And so they had the doors open and it was hot. And but it was me and the bank president and the mayor were all standing on this loft. And all of the people in town were standing down below, kind of like the royal subjects, you know, down there below us. And we were talking about the new program and everything else. And for those of us that are a little more experienced in age, might know the name Don Maynard from the Jets. Used to play with Joe Namath years and years ago. He's from Colorado City. He was there. And so all the dignitaries were there, and I was speaking. And while I was speaking, a fly flew in my mouth. And I was choking up there, and they brought me a glass of water. Well, if anybody ever been to West Texas, you know, especially, you know, 15, 20 years ago, water had a lot of sulfur in it. And so I had forgotten that. My dad grew up in West Texas, but I just wanted to get this fly washed down. And so I took a big swig of the water, and it hit my gag reflex. And I went all over the people down below. Since that day, I've never stood still behind the platform. So be glad y'all in the front row, you're out of the spit zone this morning. So when Larry and I talked on the phone, he said, you know, hey, we've got a building. It's not a whole lot. It's insulated. You know, that's about as good as it gets. And I'm kind of going, man, that's fine. And as I was thinking through it over the last few days, I started thinking about opportunities I've had to preach in different places. And I've had the opportunity to preach in the jungle in Guatemala, and lean-tos off of houses in Mexico, in dumps around the world. Oh my gosh, just so many crazy places that I never thought that God would bring me to. So this is pretty luxurious compared to a lot of the places that God's allowed me to preach. And I'm glad you don't have a platform. The biggest audience I ever preached to was about 10 years ago at a big youth conference in Houston, Texas. How I got put on the pulpit that day, I have no idea. But there were 4,500 teenagers in this room, and I was the first speaker for this conference. And it was me, a guy that, you know, named Mark Matlock, who was a big youth speaker, and then some guy by the name of Louis Giglio was the wrap-up speaker. And so I was out there first, and I was a little nervous, but there was also like this huge auditorium. There's all these lights, you know, in your face, so you really can't see anybody, and you can't see the end of the stage either. And so I'm really getting into my point with these teenagers, and I'm walking and I'm going, and all of a sudden I just go off the front of the stage. And thankfully it was only like 3 feet high, 3.5 feet high. So I jumped up and I got back on the stage to, you know, them applauding and everything else. And so I finished my part. Casting Crowns was the music that day. So they came out, you know, to do, you know, their bit after I spoke. And they were high-fiving me as I walked back. And they were, dude, that was awesome. And as I got back to the sound booth in the back, the sound guys had already put it on the loop. And Jesus said, and Jesus said, and so I'm glad there's no platform here this morning. Oh my goodness. We're going to look at Mark chapter 12 today. So if you open up your Bible or pull it up on your phone, or, you know, I know some of you probably have the whole Bible memorized. Just pull it up in your mind and go along with me here. We're going to look at verses 28 religious law was standing there listening to the debate. He realized that Jesus had answered well, so he asked, of all the commandments, which is the most important? And Jesus replied, the most important commandment is this: listen, O Israel, the Lord our God is the one and only Lord. And you must love the Lord your heart, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, and with all of your soul, and with all of your mind, and with all of your strength. The second is equally important: love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these. The teacher of religious law replied, well said, teacher. You have spoken the truth by saying that there is only one God and no other. And I know it is important to love him with all of my heart, and with all of my understanding, and with all of my strength, and to love my neighbor as myself. This is more important than to offer all of the burnt offerings and sacrifices required in the law. Realizing how much the man understood, Jesus said to him, you are not far from the kingdom of God. And after that, no one dared to ask him any more questions. Man, I wish I could do that with my kids. But if you ever had a teenager, you just kind of know. But in this passage, Jesus was speaking to the crowds and a bunch of the religious teachers of the day. And they were testing him and asking him questions, as we saw, when that one question came up. Said, what is the most important commandment in the law? And Jesus had his two-part answer, verses 30 and 31. And he said, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, and with all of your soul, and with all of your mind, and with all of your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. So let's unpack verse 30 first. And it all starts with four little words, and it's the same little word each time, and that word is and. I don't believe that there's any words in the Bible that are not there for a purpose. There's nothing in there by accident. And the word and is between each of those so that they build on each other. He starts with the basics and ends up, where he wants to end at the apex of his statement there. So let's take a look at it again. It said the concept of how we are to love God actually started in Deuteronomy. That verse is in Deuteronomy. I'm going to pull it up here real quick. Deuteronomy 6:5. And he says, listen, O Lord, listen, O Israel, the Lord is your God, the Lord alone, and you must love the Lord your God with all of your heart, all of your soul, and all of your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I am giving to you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're on the road, when you're going to bed and when you're getting up. Tie them to your hands and wear them on your foreheads as a reminder. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. So Jesus was just repeating what Scripture had already taught there when he brought up these commands. It also appears in two other Gospels, in Matthew and Luke, but in little different forms. In Matthew, he only lists heart, soul, and mind. In Luke, he mentions heart, soul, and strength. So that's why I like the Mark version that brings in all four aspects of it. Different people see things different ways and hear things different ways. I've been married 40 years. We just celebrated our 40th anniversary back in September. And I often, talk about when I do marriage counseling for young couples that my wife speaks in paragraphs and I listen in bullet points. And so, I try to pick out the things that I really need to retain, as she's going on about her day. And I'm just kind of going, oh, keep that one. Don't say, oh, good, when she's saying something bad. Those types of things. So I listen in bullet points, even though she talks in paragraphs. Anybody else in here does that? Yeah? Bill, that's why we're teaching spirits. Okay. And so as we take a look at this, we can see why the different personalities heard different things that day as those were being preached. So let's talk about the heart first. When it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, consider this. Without a heartbeat, we are dead. That's right. I mean, if your heart's not beating, you're not going. So, several years ago, I was in a meeting, and all of a sudden I started feeling like I was having a heart attack. And my heart was just racing, my left arm was going kind of crazy, and I said, I gotta get out of here. So I left the meeting I was in, I went down to the secretary's office down the hall, and I said, I need you to call an ambulance, I think I'm having a heart attack. And so the EMS came and everything else, and they were trying to get an IV started in me, and my heart was pumping so fast, and the blood was, they couldn't get it to stay in my arm. And just my blood pressure was so high. And so they finally get me in, they slapped me in the ambulance, not slapped me in the ambulance, carefully placed me in the ambulance. And as we're driving down the road, I mean, the heart monitor they had me hooked up to is just going, beep, 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 and it's just really fast, and all of a sudden it goes, beep, and I'm going, what in the world, you know? And I'm asking the guy, I said, am I still alive? And he goes, I think so, you're talking. And I said, okay, you know, and he starts going around, and he's about to shock me when he goes, oh, you just came unplugged. You know? And back in. And I started going to go, oh, Jesus. And because as a young man, I was a paramedic for a while, and part of your practice is shocking each other. And it's not a lot of fun. So I knew it was into, so I didn't want to get shocked again. But when your heartbeat stops, you stop. Our heart is likely the most important organ that we have, because without it, we're in trouble. It is the wellspring of life in our body. And we are commanded to love God with all of our heart here. My favorite view in the morning, when I come downstairs, after I've gotten ready and I'm getting ready to leave for work, is to come down and see my wife in her quiet time chair. It's right there in our front room, and she sits there in her quiet time chair, not the timeout chair, which I get, but the quiet time chair. And she's sitting there, and she's got her Bible out, she's got some music playing, the lamp's on behind her, and she is having her quiet time there. And why is that my favorite view in the world? Is because I know, I don't think I did much of that. I know during that time, she is falling more in love with God during that time, because she's learning and she's growing in Him and everything else. And that's what I want most for her and all of the world. I encourage that. She encourages it in me, because we are commanded, we are asked to love God with all of our heart. I want her love for God to make her love for me almost look like hate. I mean, that's where I want her life to be. That's where I want her focus to be, is there. Because if our vertical relationship with God is not right, our horizontal relationships cannot be right. And so I always want her focused on that vertical relationship. So to love God with all of our heart is not necessarily easy. There are days I honestly just don't flat feel like it. And but God commands me, so I do my best. I fail a lot, but I continue to do my best. So God asks for our undivided love. And then it goes on to say, and. Okay, so He's building. He started at our heart, and He goes, and love God with all of your soul. Well, what is your soul? I mean, I grew up in a Catholic church, and they always said, your soul goes to heaven. So, so as a little kid, I'm trying to figure out, what is my soul? What does my soul look like? Does your soul grow arms and legs, and there's all these little souls running around heaven, which kind of freaks me out as a little kid, honestly. And so I was trying to figure out, what exactly is your soul? In the Bible, you see spirit and soul. Often they're kind of put together in the same context. Sometimes they're different. Many theologians take a look at it. It's the same thing. It's related. Some don't. And so it's really not real clear. But your soul, when you take a look at different interpretations out there, basically they say it's the immaterial essence and totality of who you are at a core level. So it's your innermost being. makes you tick. It's your true nature. It's where our feelings and emotions are generated from. It's from the wellspring of our soul. Then it goes on and says, and, so we're building again. We've had our heart and our soul, and then we go, and love the Lord your God with all of your mind. Okay, that's our thoughts and our intellect. God wants us thinking about Him. He wants us learning about Him. He doesn't ask us to be blind followers or devotees. He wants us fully engaged with our mind in Him. And that's where, as we come to church and learn, as we read our Bible and learn, as we listen to worship music and learn, all those types are engaging with God, with our mind, with our intellect, with our thoughts. I don't know about y'all, my days are crazy. If I don't stop and sit for a little bit in the morning and start off with a quiet time, my day is just total chaos. It turns into mild chaos, but it could be total chaos. I'm pulled in 15 different directions every day. When you run a nonprofit, the phone rings all the time, it dings, it buzzes, it crows at me. I have one person that their ringer's a crow, I don't know why. They set it up. My Siri, all of a sudden one day, I don't know if you use an iPhone and use Siri for anything. My Siri had a life change at one point. It went from a female to a male with an Australian accent. Don't know how that happened. But it's very entertaining, these days. If I'm trying to drive downtown Austin and I need to turn on Chicone Street, Siri in an Australian accent doesn't know how to say Chicone. It says, turn left on Chicken Street. And I'm going, Chicken Street? What is that? But it's Chicone. So if your phone ever goes to an Australian accent, you know. But our mind is where we have the intellect about God. We understand God. We make our deeper relationship with God. It starts in the mind. And then there's that annoying word again, and, for the next time. So we love the Lord our God with all of our heart, and with all of our soul, and with all of our mind. And Mark goes on to say, and with all of your strength. And that's our physical nature. It's how we live out the love that we've built in our heart, in our soul, in our mind. We live it out through our strength. We put it into motion. People go to the gym all the time to work out. Obviously not me. But other people go to the gym and work out. Or you work out in your home, or you take a walk around the block, or whatever you do to get stronger. And that's the reason we do it. When we work out, we build our muscles, we get stronger, we get healthier. And it's the same thing when we work out our love for God through our strength. The more we do it, the stronger we get. The more endurance we build. And so our strength is living out that word of God. So now let's look at verse 31 real quick. At 31, he says, the second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these. So that begs the question, how do you love yourself? Any thoughts?
How do you think of yourself?
Sorry?
How you think of yourself.
How you think of yourself. There's the mental aspect of it.
Taking care of yourself.
Taking care of yourself.
Make yourself a priority.
Make yourself a priority. Okay? To the very basic level, it's food, shelter, clothing. Those are all ways that you love yourself. And these are all ways that we can love our neighbors. Now, honestly, I've got people that I know in my life that just bug the bejeebers out of me. And the last thing I want to do is love them, because then they want to come back around more for some more love, and I really don't want to be around them anymore. So I do my bare, necessities there, and hope they go away and never come back. But they keep doing it. They keep coming back, and God keeps saying, I want you to love your neighbor as you love yourself. One of those ways in working out, let me back up a second. As God asks us to love our neighbors as we love ourselves, I think often we think we have to share the gospel all the time. And, as I've gone through this life, I'm 59 years old now, I've learned, yes, that is definitely a part of it. Okay? It's a big part of it. But I think too often we talk too much and don't do enough. So my suggestion would be, and it works for me, is show more, talk less. Okay? Our gospel is a very simple message. But as Christians, we really tend so many times to make it very difficult. But it really is a very simple message. Theodore Roosevelt said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so if we come at them with words, so many times it turns them off, it shuts them down. But if we show them physically how much we care about them, people become much more open to what you have to say after that. And so I think we need to focus a lot on the saying, on the doing, follow up with the saying. One of the things that when I was a young believer, I didn't get saved until I was 24. But we had every quarter or so, and Roger, you may be able to help me with this, we had evangelism training at the church. So we would meet over in one of the rooms over there. They'd teach us really quick how to share the gospel, and they would send us out to neighborhoods to knock on doors. Well, that was great, except when your lead message, when you go, if someone would actually open the door, and you start off with, do you know if you don't know Jesus, you're going to hell? That doesn't go over real well, in a lot of people's door frames when you say that. And so that really kind of turned me off from the very beginning, that there's got to be a better way to do this. So for years, I didn't talk to people about Jesus because I didn't know how to do it, what to do, how to say, or anything else. I knew that was not the right way for me to go about it. So over the years, God has shown me, for me, how to talk to people and how to show the love of God to people. And He puts me in some very interesting positions throughout my week and throughout the day. And when I get up in the morning, I don't set a goal every day. I need to share with 5 people today. If I don't share with 5 people today, I'm just a lousy Christian. I don't do that. Maybe I should. Maybe I'd be more intentional then and more focused, but that's not me. I'm not that goal-oriented. I kind of fly by the seat of my pants. And so, but I do pray every day, say, God, when I walk out this door today, help me see the people I need to see that you want me to see today. And I don't always succeed in that either. I'll sit down sometimes at night, and I'm getting ready to go to bed, and go, I missed that one. That was an easy one. That was like a softball lob, and I just struck out on that one. But God places a lot of people in my life for sometimes unknown reasons, but by the end of the conversation, it's a known reason. I'm in my 3rd round of cancer treatment these days. And so you meet a lot of people in the cancer ward. That sounds really old. In the treatment facility, that's better. In the treatment facility, as they're getting ready for their treatments or exams or whatever else, and you can see on their faces that it's hard. And it is hard. And you can have conversations about that. And so many people that are in these situations have lost hope. And they just need some hope poured into them. I meet a lot of homeless people. I love homeless people in Austin. And because they have great stories. You really never know if they're true or not, especially the alien ones. But they have a lot of great stories, and you get to talk to them and everything else. And they just need people to love on them. I meet a lot of people outside convenience stores. I meet a lot of runaways that are sitting in front of convenience stores. And, I just say, hey, I'm fixing to go get a drink. Can I get you a drink? And that opens the door for me to have a conversation with people as we sit down and enjoy our drinks together. It's really simple. How to start a conversation is very simple. Most people like to talk about themselves. And so if you give them a platform to talk about themselves, they'll step up and do it. And they'll tell you everything, especially if you're not trying to preach at them right away. And so we have met a young guy the other day, and he was sitting out in front of a convenience store. And I said, hey man, I'm about to go in and get a drink. Can I get you something? And he said, yeah, I love a beer. I was kind of like, no, I'm not doing that. But I can get you, a bottle of water or a cup of coffee or a Coke or something like that. He said, fine, I'll take a bottle of water. So I walk in, get him a bottle of water, me a bottle of water. We come back out and sit down on the curb next to him, and we're just chatting. And got to talk to him about, how he became homeless. And I mean, he had been an engineer at one point and lost his job, lost his wife, lost his family, started drinking. They couldn't pay for the house anymore. She went and lived with her family. He was left out in the cold and had been living on the street for 6 years. And so we got to talk about that and, how to struggle with that, how to live through that, how to deal with that. I've never been homeless, so I can't relate to that. I've never been, a drug dealer or a drug user. I get all these people during my life that I can't relate to on that level. But typically I find when someone has that out there, it is a manifestation of something deeper in their lives. So we ask questions to get deeper. And we talk about that. And they were hurt by somebody. They were hurt by the church. They were hurt this way. They're angry about that. Their parents got divorced. They were adopted. They were, and they haven't had a way to deal with these things. Those types of things I can relate to. I can relate to hurt. I can relate to hurt in the church. I can relate to being adopted. I can relate to all these different things. And I can talk about how God has worked in my life through those things. People will argue with this every day. They can say, it was just written by a bunch of men. It's not true. It contradicts itself. All these things, they can have arguments about that every day of the week. What they cannot argue about is what God has done in my life. And so I can share those types of things, back it up here, but I share my story. And it's not my story, it's God's story in my life. And I can share what God has done in my life and how God has helped me through things, and that I know God can help them through things as well. Every once in a while, not very often, but every once in a while, it turns out really well. Somebody will pray to receive Christ. I was talking to a young lady the other day who had run away because she didn't believe she was loved by her dad. So we ended up calling Dad on the phone. He didn't know if she was dead or alive. She had been gone for 3 years. And she was living on the streets in Austin. And I put him on the phone with the daughter, and they just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried together. Because she found out, and she had heard for the first time, I love you. And that just opened up the conversation. Stinking. Okay, and so I got her with a friend who takes in some homeless teenagers. She stayed there for a few weeks, and their dad came and got her. They called me not too long ago, just to let me know everything is great in the household. But folks, as believers, we have to take that heart love, that soul love, that mind love, and that strength love that we have for God, and display it and show it to those people that are around us. Sometimes it's the people that are sitting over here outside the gas station across the street from you. Sometimes it's somebody you meet in a restaurant. But find a way to start a conversation. In Austin, I bet probably 3/4 of the people in Austin have a tattoo. And so tattoos are an easy mark for me. So I can say, hey, tell me about this tattoo you have on your arm. And it's usually one of 3 things. Oh, it's in honor of, my grandma, or something like that. She was always a beautiful flower in my life, so I got this rose going up my forearm. And I'm going to go, oh, that's nice, let's talk about your grandma. There's my point of commonality, because I too have a grandma. And then sometimes it's, I lost a bet. And so this was the payoff for the bet. And unfortunately, sometimes it's, I was drunk, I don't even remember getting it. Woke up, Sunday morning, and there it was. And I kind of went, whoa, I got this tattoo now. And so I have 6 kids. 3 are mine, 3 that are married in, and 4 of them are, we'll say, heavily tattooed. And most of them have a meaning. My son-in-law was an IMB missionary in Peru and would go up and down the river in Peru with his missionary partner, meeting indigenous people groups along the river and sharing the gospel with them. Talking to headhunters and all kinds of crazy things. And the first tattoo he got was a tribal tattoo, and it's these flames that are coming up from his wrist. But it accepted him into the tribe that he was talking to, that he got to share the gospel with. And they said, we've had visions and dreams of a white man with long hair coming and talking to us about a higher power. And here you are. One of my sons has birds flying up his arm. I don't know what it is about things going up his arm. But he has birds flying up his arm. And he's a musician, and he had a song about caged birds can't sing and finding freedom and being able to sing. And that was part of his testimony. And so as he put this tattoo on his arm, he used it to share the gospel. My daughter and my daughter-in-law are both heavily tattooed. Then I have 2 that are kind of like chicken, and they won't do it. And but we're thankful for those. But they all got together last Christmas and pulled together their money and say, Dad, here's the money. We want you to go get a tattoo. And I said, great, let's do it. They said, really? I said, no, we're not doing that. So that money still sits in my top drawer of my desk. Maybe one day, but I don't like needles, so we're probably not going to do that. Waitresses, waiters, your wait staff at your restaurants are also easy people to talk to. I don't know if anybody has family in the service industry right now. It's tough. It's hard. Restaurants are struggling. They're having a hard time staying open. They have a hard time hiring people, keeping the dining rooms open. And so whenever we order, but Terry and my wife and I were having lunch yesterday at one of our favorite places, and the poor waitress out there had 16 tables outside by herself. And so she was scrambling. She was running back and forth. People were giving her a hard time. Where's my food? Where's my drink? I need a refill. I dropped my fork. Can you give me another one? And I just wanted to take my but here's a fork for you, buddy. And but I didn't do that. And so she finally brought our drinks after about 15 minutes. She goes, I am so sorry. I got stopped by this person and this person. I said, no, you're doing great. You're having, it's hard. Tell you what, we're about to pray before, our food comes out. How can I pray for you? Whoosh. Just a puddle. Because she is so stressed there at work. And then she sat down at our table, which I'm sure upset all the other tables around there. But she sat down at our table and said, 6 years ago, my dad died. And I'd never gotten over that. In COVID, my mom died and my brother died. My husband left me. One of my kids has COVID right now that lives with somebody else because I can't afford to keep him. And I am working 60 hours a week because they can't hire enough people here. And I just need a prayer for strength. And so we pray for her for strength. And as we were holding hands, she started off with just a death grip on us. And as we prayed, it got lesser and lesser. And you could just feel it pouring out of her. And the comfort and the peace of God coming over her. Just by taking a moment out of your day and praying for somebody that you need as a complete stranger. So how do we love God and love people? For me, almost I think the loving God part is harder because that requires more of me. It requires my full heart devotion. It requires me spending time intellectually and learning more about Him. I'm not a big reader, so for me to sit down and read is a task. But I know I have to do it. I have to engage intellectually. It requires me to love with my soul, my innermost being, which for me is difficult because I'm kind of a control freak and I don't like giving over the control of my emotions and my feelings and everything else, so that's hard for me. And then the strength can sometimes be difficult as well. But it's the loving on people, being able to take that love that God has poured into us, that relationship that we built, and pouring it out on other people. For me, that's the easy part, and for me, that's the fun part of it. It doesn't always turn out well. And, Joanne and Gwen and them and Dana, on my Facebook page, I write some of the stories up of these God encounters that God puts me into. And some of them turn out well, some of them don't turn out well. But it's the matter of obedience. It's the matter of showing that love of God and that relationship that I have with Him to other people. I always sum this up as in just 4 words, and if I ever did get a tattoo, this is what it would say. And it would say, love God, love people. That's what's required of us. It's very simple. It's not rocket science. And I think we can all do that. So what I'd like for you to imagine today, I know you're about to have lunch, pulled pork.
Yes.
Pulled pork sandwiches. But I want you to imagine as you're walking out the door, back there today, in fact, everybody turn around and take a look at the door real quick. So there's a sign above the door, and it says, you are now entering the mission field. Okay? This is just a building. Okay? When Larry was telling me, hey, we've got a building, it's got insulation in it, but that's about it, it's nothing fancy. I mean, you got a purple party in a box outside. I mean, that's pretty special. And you've got sound, and you've got breeze coming through here and everything else. And this building can be a church this week. This building can be a bowling alley next week. It's about the right length. It could be either one. What makes the difference in this building is the people that are in this building. And your heart and your focus. Bowlers will come in here, and their heart is bowling, and their focus is getting a strike and rolling 300, okay? That makes us a bowling alley. But if you're coming here with your heart focused on God, okay, and you're all about loving God and loving people, this building is a church. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate that. This morning, the "and" is very important. The thing that I struggle with the most is the "all." I think I'm doing really good. I've loved the Lord with all my heart and mind, strength, and soul, but come to find out, it was really only 98%. And so this song here is to close and remind us that it's all for Him. All of it, not part of it. Every step of faith, every sacrifice, every prayer that's prayed from an honest heart. You alone deserve every breath of worship. I just want to say how great You are. Oh, and it's all creation sing, all the earth adores you, from the highest star to the deepest sea. Oh yes, it's all for you, every song of praise. Lord, it's all for you, every hand that prays, everything I am, everything I do. Oh, it's all for you. Again, it's all for you, every song of praise. Lord, it's all for you, every hand that prays, everything I am, everything I do. It's all for you, all for you. Oh, it's all for you, all for you. Lord, it's all for you, all for you. Yeah, it's all for you, all for you, all for you. You guys go out and love the Lord, love people with all your heart, mind, souls, and strength.
So I just wanted to remind everybody that we are eating when this is over. If you didn't bring food, you're welcome to stay. So don't run out just because you didn't bring anything. And I failed to mention earlier, we need to continue to pray for recovery. Alan's here this morning for the first time in a while. We're going to be thankful that he's recovering and doing well and able to make it. Keep praying for Alan and Mary and Jimmy. Glad to see you here this morning. I know Jimmy shared this morning. He's still working on this artificial leg situation, and we need to pray for him and some little bit of discomfort he's going through. Leonard Fawcett is not here this morning. He's got a mouthful of teeth. They look beautiful, but he's having a little trouble with them, so he wasn't able to make it this morning. We need to pray for him as well. And Glenn Horty, they just had surgery on his knee, and so we'll be praying for you, Glenn, that recovery comes quick. And otherwise, I want to remind everybody Wednesday night we'll have a meeting, talk about, we'll do a vote on things we've discussed. I've got some ballots in the back. If somebody wants to talk to me about it and have questions, we can do that while we're here eating. So that's about it. I love the suggestion, Chris, of you're now entering the mission field. That's wonderful. We thank you so much for being